It's time to get nerdy, y'all.
A little bit of gaming history for you.
Something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it.
Should we kick it out of here, or should we kick-start it?
This is the part where you, the listeners, try to stump the hosts.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Tuesday, December 30th, 2024, and you know what that means. It's almost 2025, and also it's time to get nerdy, y'all. Welcome to episode number 328 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. I am Lam, also known as Mr. Nice Guy, and I'm joined by my comrade in gaming commentary, the Miggity Mac, also known as Maction. Mac, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. What is new in your world, sir?
Not much, because I had a fantastically lovely and relaxed Christmas weekend. While we were considering doing some travel plans, right before we got started, we heard about fatal car accidents along the route that we were planning to travel, so we decided, you know what? It is a staycation, this thing. No thanks, I choose life, we says. So we had a staycation and had more or less a 5-day weekend. I did pop into work because we had a lot of stuff to do, but just that kind of broke up the sort of 5-day weekend, which was really, really nice. And I'm looking forward to New Year's Eve off, but lots of video games, lots of just relaxation and rest. So it was a good time. How about you, man?
It was really good, Mac. We had some special guests here in the Nice Guy household. We had my cousin who comes out every year from Boston. Love having him come and stay with us. And then my brother from Seattle also came out this year. So we had a really, really fun time. We got out and did stuff. Of course, I had to show him the laser tag.
Oh, of course.
Place where I go. Battle House. Shout out to Battle House. Love Battle House in Waukesha. We did that twice, actually. And then we also did some axe throwing at another place here locally. We ate some really good meals at various places. Went to my favorite Jamaican restaurant with my cousin. And did some sledding. And the same stuff you mentioned, man. Gaming, relaxation, all that good stuff. The sledding was particularly fun, though. Not just because it was free, but because the hill is very, very tall. And you can catch some major air off the...
Is it the type of hill you would die on?
It is. You know, for that type of rush, I absolutely would. I'd stand for that hill at Kinderberg Park.
Excellent.
Here in Wisconsin. So, yeah, man. Holidays were great. And, Mac, on that note, I say we do what we do best and hop right up into this episode, a special episode of Two Nerds. Mac, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about our Indie Game of the Year. I mean, in Game Awards and things like that, they've got one, there can be only one. But for us, there have been so many over the years that it's time for us to highlight what we thought was the best looking back. And for the second year in a row, we end the year on a highlight of what we thought were the best. Not to say that we don't think all of the indie games that we talked about on this show this year weren't fantastic, but these were the ones that really, really resonated with us.
Yeah, and just to give viewers a little bit more context, many of you who are regulars know we do an Indie Game of the Week several times throughout the year on the show. These are not necessarily your games like Balatro or Animal Well that are also indies, but these are indies that we feel are maybe not getting the attention that they deserve. And so that's why we do it. So when we say that our number one is Game X, and you're like, what? That's not a better game than Balatro or Animal Well or whatever. It's because everyone knows what Balatro is, and we love that game. I love that game, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. So, games that we reviewed this year. Mac, we're doing top 5, right?
Top 5.
All right. So, as is tradition, we go back and forth. Mac does his 5, I do my 5, 4, all the way up to number 1. And we'll do that. So, Mac, do you want to start us off today?
I would love to. My number 5 pick, Mr. Nice Guy, of the underground indies that we reviewed this year would be Exophobia, which, as an FYI, is 20% off on the Steam sale right now, which should be continuing until, I think, Steam winter sales till January 2nd. So,
yeah.
So anyway, Exophobia, basically the game had a vibe very similar to Doom or Wolfenstein 3D. You're talking about a game that is first-person shooter in the old style, with a few different new sensibilities, wrapped in, like the map that had like batteries to it, so where you saved the game you would also be able to like recharge the batteries on your map, but you couldn't just sit there and keep the map out all the time. It was an interesting take that I think actually brought some new and different things to it, but I thought it was a great attempt to improve on an old formula, and so Exophobia, number 5 for me. Now, one other thing I almost forgot. It was developed by Zark Attack, published by PM Studios, Inc.
Awesome. And shout out to them for the codes. All these games that we're going to talk about today, developers, publishers sent us the codes for review purposes, and we appreciate that very much. It's interesting that that's your number 5, because candidly, that one did not even make my top 5, which speaks to the caliber of games that we played this year. And same thing last year. There's probably going to be some overlap. We haven't discussed this in advance, but there's going to be some games that make my list that maybe aren't on yours and vice versa. We know that now because there's at least one that's not on both.
At least one.
My number 5 is going to surprise some people who are regular listeners, because I was very critical of this game when we reviewed it. But that's the great thing about this, is we can look at these games through rose-colored glasses. As we play them past the episode where they were reviewed, maybe our opinions change a little bit. My number 5, Decklines Drops. Decklines Drops currently on sale on the Steam sale as well. 30% off for $13.29. Developed by Moulin Obul's studio and also published by them. And I would describe this game as a platforming beat 'em up, which it doesn't really do it justice to describe it that way. This game incorporated the best parts of many of the best beat 'em up and platformers throughout the years. I can see the influence of Beautiful Joe in the beat 'em up system, where it gives you a rating based on how long of a combo you can chain together. I can see the graphics of Yoshi's Island in the beautiful landscapes and character design that are also minimalistic. And I can also see the influence of a game like what was that one game? Pizza
Tower.
Yeah, Pizza Tower on Steam, where you're trying to very, very quickly platform, run, jump, find paths, and do things like that. When I played this game at first, Mac, I was very critical because the day of our review, I hopped back in to get some more time in, and I hit new game instead of continue, and without any warning, it deleted my save file. And that frustrated me so much because I was decently far in the game that I said it was such an unacceptable omission by the part of the devs that I kind of dinged them for that, and I still stand by that. In fact, I'm still frustrated that they've had major updates and have not fixed that. But when I look at this game at its core, if you're a fan of platformers and of all those other games that I mentioned, you're going to love this. It's a beautiful game. The controls are extremely tight. Other than that issue, I don't think I dealt with a single bug. No real story that matters. But I just think that this is platforming, not perfection, but platforming genius. I really enjoyed this game.
Yeah. Nope. Decklines Drops, a good one, but yes, again, speaking to just the quality of everything, but not on my top list. Turning to my number 4, Mr. Nice Guy, Ultros.
Okay.
It is 50% off on Steam right now. Normally it's about $25. It's going for $12.50. And developer Hadokyu, published by Kepler Interactive. So at its heart, Ultros is a Metroidvania, if that term really captures anything. But with a dash of sort of time loop. The graphics are an acid dream come to life. But one of the things that I think is most intriguing about it is the idea that you're looping continually through this, and the stuff that you accomplish on one loop can impact your loop down the road, specifically with planting seeds and growing trees that either bear fruit and allow you to, say, interact with some of the creatures. Feeding fruit to some of the enemies might make them docile and help you, might make them open up a new pathway, or maybe what it'll do is it'll make a platform for you to hop onto, or even short out, like the plant growth itself shorts out a mechanism that was preventing you from getting to a new area itself. And then you tack on the ability to basically splice qualities of one plant onto another as if you had grafted it on in a pseudo real world sense, giving you the chance to do all sorts of wild and interesting and crazy new things. So, if you weren't able to double jump, triple jump, rocket jump, whatever, to get to a new area, maybe you could by adding limbs from one tree to another tree and making the tree grow and platforms in the direction that you needed to. Just all sorts of interesting ways to use and maybe even abuse the mechanics that make for a game with a depth to it that you don't initially expect when you play it. And again, cannot stress this enough, fever dream of a game graphics. They have sliders for the graphics in this game. Keep at least some of the sliders a little bit lower so that you can resolve foreground from background with how very, very busy it all gets. But yeah, Ultros is what I had picked for number 4. A fantastic game.
Nice. And in terms of combat, Ultros had some unique combat, if I remember correctly. You could, kill enemies, but if you killed them a certain way, they would drop stuff. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, I believe so. I can't think of any specifics off the top of my head, but that sounds right. Most of the combat you would have sort of close combat with swords and such. But yeah, you could definitely interact with them to get them to drop things or dig up new things. I mostly found it useful to feed them things to get them to dig up areas that would allow me to plant even more plants and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely one of the more unique Metroidvanias that I have ever played.
Yeah.
And just a beautiful game. The art style is so unique. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, cool. My number 4, and I'm loving the way that this is going, is a game that was simplistic, but was what I often refer to as a comfort food in gaming. Now, once again, you could go back and listen to all of the episodes where we reviewed these games and be like, nice guy, that one wasn't even one of your top 5 rated. True. But since we've played it afterwards, since I've played it after that review, I've probably gotten more appreciation for some of these games. And the game that is number 4 for me is Iron Meat. Iron Meat, also currently on sale on Steam for the winter sale. Currently 20% off at $15.99. Developed by Ivan Valeric Surlarov and Retroware, and published by Retroware. And Mac, if I remember correctly, Retroware also made Prison City, which is a game we reviewed last year. Am I right about that?
They did publish Yes, they did publish Retro City. Yeah, Prison City. Wow.
Nice. Yeah, you're good, man. It's late. Don't worry about it. I guess the thing I liked about this game is it's literally Contra.
Mm-hmm.
It's Contra, but with modern sensibilities. So you have different difficulties you can choose if you're just having too much trouble getting through it. There are unlockables that really just do aesthetic type of things. There's a level select, which to me is invaluable with this type of game, because as I'm trying to get the achievements for not shooting any barrels on the train or whatever it may be, I can go back to that level and do it again without having to play through the whole game like I would on NES. This game is one of those pick up and play. I have 5 minutes. I want to do a level on the Steam Deck at my lunch break, whatever it may be. I'm on a plane. I just want to play something that's mindless and have a good time. But what made this game good for me, Mac, is it controls very, very well. There's no slowdown, which you would expect, but also the level of intricacy in the backgrounds really, really impressed me. This is most similar to like Contra 3, the Alien Wars on Super Nintendo. But it just brings back the memories of playing games like that. And it's well done. Retroware is consistently putting out quality stuff in this graphical style. And that's why this is my number 4. I loved it.
You know, I'll throw one other thing that was really nice about Iron Meat was that you had 2 weapon slots. So you weren't stuck with a weapon you hated, but also if you died, when you died,
right?
You only lost the special weapon in your active slot. So you know, if you were holding on to one of those spread guns for most of the level, you didn't take a stupid hit and then lose it before you got to the boss, just so long as it wasn't active on your weapon. So I loved that. Yep. A great choice.
Great point. And like you, I'm sure you used that strategically. I know I did. When I got a weapon that I liked and I leveled it up. And in fact, if I remember correctly, I think you could level stuff up more than once. So like if you got a spread shot and then you got another spread shot while you had it equipped, it would make it stronger. I think there was a 3rd level.
I don't remember there being a 3rd level, but it's possible that I never survived long enough at any given point in time to get the 3rd bump on a thing.
Get good, kid, as they say.
I do.
Yeah, no, it's a great game, and I really enjoyed it. Fully recommend it if you like that type of.
Right. Well, my number 3 pick out of this year's Underground Indies was Arco.
Wow. Okay.
Another game that just really goes to show that it's not about graphics. Pixel art is obviously Mac's jam, but it's a brutal story of vengeance in a Southwestern package. And of course, you know, we're talking Southwestern like Three Amigos, Santa Pulco, Mexico Southwest. Music fantastic. Story is a gut punch. It is both real-time as well as turn-based. Has a real-time component while you are planning your moves in the turn-based that's going on in life. It was still held back, in my opinion, by some of the difficulty options. How I really felt like your option for decreasing the difficulty wasn't actually decreasing the difficulty, it was just trivializing the whole thing. And I also felt like it was a little bit held back by the fact that you really needed to change up your play style each time, instead of, you know, finding tactics and power-ups and skills that you worked best with and using them tactically in many situations. But I think that's a different strokes for different folks type of thing. Nonetheless, really enjoyed Arco. It is, it was developed by Max Cahill, Bob Key, Freyher, and Franek, and the publisher was Panic. Them's the folks who published it. And it is on Steam sale right now, 30% off, selling for $13.99 as opposed to its usual $19.99. But still, a great game. If you like pixel art, you like tactics, this is a great take. It brought something new to the scene, I felt.
Well, Mac, I'm really enjoying the way that this is going, and I want to emphasize to the listeners, we do not talk about these in advance. So far, there has been no overlap.
Yes.
I am going to guess that there is overlap in our last 2 games, because with our last 3, I know that there's not, because my number 3 was Anomaly Agent. Now, to give some background on Anomaly Agent, it's currently actually sitting at overwhelmingly positive on Steam. Came out January 24th of this year. Developer Pew Pew Games, published by Pew Pew Games and GameDev.ist. Shout out to them and all of these devs who have provided us with codes this year. This is a game that I picked up and could not put down. And once again, it goes to show that graphics are really not that important in how good a game is. Pixel graphics, almost NES style, but with much more going on in the background than the NES would have been able to handle. And one of the things that I really liked about this game was the story. The dialogue was just hilarious. You're an agent. You're trying to solve some things. I don't want to tell too much about the story. But they added so many elements into this game. The platforming was tight. The fighting was really, really precise. the level design was just beautiful. Even though you're just side-scrolling, the amount of things that are going on in the background to keep you engaged are awesome. And the premise of being able to go back and solve things that you weren't able to do the first time, I love it. They did it in a way that was not frustrating. Combine that with the fact that there were collectibles that you could use to level up your character and do different things, different ways that you could attack different situations, which is not something that you often see with a game that has this simplistic of graphics. Almost like a Katana Zero, if people have played that game. This is almost reminiscent of that. And then, Mac, I'll finish by saying it had the right amount of silliness to keep me engaged and make me laugh out loud. Now, I played this on the Steam Deck, as I did all these games. And I remember playing this one when I had some downtime on a cruise, like before bed, and just like couldn't put it down and just breezed through it. I can't speak highly enough of this game. It is currently on sale for $4.79 at 60% off. And I would say if you have any interest in this genre of game, buy this game, laugh your head off, and enjoy yourself. Great boss battles, just fun game.
All right. Well, number 2, Mr. Nice Guy, and we'll see if we have overlap. Arranger is my number 2 pick. Really, this is a cozy puzzle game. If you've ever played any of those little games where you like slide around tiles in order to get them in a specific order, think something like that, except for what's going on is you're shifting sort of the tiles of the world around you. In some cases, you need to get various characters into the same room together, clear out junk. You'll wrap around as you get to the edge of an area, as will the tiles. And sometimes you need to stick a sword into the enemy by dragging it around. And because, of course, you move in a Cartesian, in an up, down, left, right, an x-axis, y-axis type of motion, you need to plan certain movements carefully so as to line things up. If you ever enjoyed doing a Rubik's Cube, my gosh, Arranger is the way to go. And cute graphics. The writing was charming, the graphics were great, and it was just delightful. It was developed by Furniture and Mattress, and self-published by Furniture and Mattress. And right now on the Steam sale, 30% off. Usually goes for $19.99, $13.99 at the current moment. And yeah, absolutely loved it. It's a great game, and I think it's also a good game that will probably speak to some of those in your life who maybe are not quite as video gamer as others. For those for whom Skyrim's a bit much, Arranger could be exactly the thing.
Well, Mac, I will tell you, you are absolutely correct. We do have an overlap here because my number 2 game was Arranger as well.
Woo!
And Arranger is one of those games. When I look at the indie games of the year that we saw nominated at the Game Awards this year, stuff like Balatro, stuff like Animal Well, many, many others, I honestly believe that Arranger, had it gotten a little bit more attention, quite a bit more attention, could have been up there with those games because it really is that good. And I don't know if there's a game that I can really compare it to. It's just its own thing. And it's a beautiful game. And I don't know if Mac... It's hard to paint the picture of what this game is with words.
Mm-hmm.
But it's literally the tiles move as you move.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how you traverse through the world completely.
Yeah.
And you're trying to beat enemies. You're trying to block off lasers so that you can progress. You're trying to move a key from one place to another. And there's places where the world wraps around itself. And you're trying to figure it out. But they also, Mac, added the feature for those who don't have time for all of that and just want to enjoy it, where I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, a puzzle being too difficult could be skipped. Is that your understanding as well?
Indeed, yeah.
And that's the thing, that I like a little bit of frustration in my games, but I don't like a frustration to the point that it takes away from me being able to enjoy a really good story in a game that's kind of cozy. So I like that they included that feature. Mac, the thing I will say that disappoints me is that this game currently has 173 reviews on Steam. And it should have thousands.
Yep.
Because Arranger really is that good of a game. It's a masterpiece of a puzzle role-playing adventure. And it's something that I hope in the coming years will get a bump in sales and get a bump in attention because it is that good.
100% agree. 100% agree. Well, we're turning to number one now.
Number one.
Mac's number one pick, indie game of the year for Mac, is Sanabi.
Okay.
I love pixel art. I also love grappling hooks. And this game had them, but more than just that. It also had some real heart to it. Now, you may recall when we talked about it back in episode 298, I had some notes that were probably shared by others because I feel like they got addressed in subsequent updates. At the current moment, we are looking at Sanabi on Steam, 35% off. It normally goes for $15, it's for just under $10 now. Developed by Wonder Potion and published by NeoWiz. Now, as just a contrast, we were talking about Arranger has way fewer reviews than it ought to have. Sanabi has a lot more reviews. The recent reviews, 1,000. All reviews, 30,000. Overwhelmingly positive, and I think rightfully earned. Granted, I still had some notes. I didn't think that the dialogue hit as well as I would like it. There were some of the boss battles that were a little bit of the pain with what I felt some unfair RNG components to a couple of them. But they really, I feel like they addressed those because as I went back subsequently trying to play it over again and try things out, I felt like it improved greatly. There are, of course, some things that could never change about it, but I think they took what worked, they improved things in a way, and the movement felt fast, felt visceral, felt fun to traverse with the grappling hook, and something that I just really, really appreciated. I'm not going to say too much more about the story, but Sanabi, I thought, gave me one of the most fun experiences that I had this year in playing of our indies.
And for the record, if anyone wants to fact check and go back and be like, what, that game came out in 2023. Yes, it did, but we played it this year, and much like the Game Awards have kind of a cutoff, we allow this game, a November and December release to count on our 2023.
Yeah.
So, dude, that's awesome. I was not expecting that to be your number one, although I agree it was an awesome game, and I think it's dope that it has, 30,000 some reviews?
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly positive. Well, my number one is one that I am shocked was not on your top 5. This is a game that I had been following since development, and I remember I had reached out to the dev and said, hey, would it be possible for us to get a copy of this when it comes out? And they said, absolutely, hit us up when it comes out. We did. And they came through and they were able to provide us with codes to review, and we really appreciate that. This game is Fallen Leaf. And Fallen Leaf currently sits at 162 reviews on Steam, very positive, came out in July, developed and published by Delta Shore Games. In the Steam sale, currently 30% off at $11.89. Mac, as someone who likes old school NES-style platformers, a la Mega Man, this game was a breath of fresh air. I love that it gave you what I can't remember 8 to 10 characters that you could play that all had different abilities. And I love that it had the Mario 3 style map design where you play one level, then you move to the next. That was one thing about Mega Man that I always could have kind of taken or leaving, when they had all the levels on the screen in the beginning and you pick which boss you want to fight. And then if you pick one that has a good power, then it makes it easier to go to the next one. They just laid it out for you. They made it much more linear on rails where there's a map, you play through all the levels. There are some secrets that allow you to go to different levels. There are collectibles. And there are some different hubs where you can walk through a city, have conversations, kind of like Cursed Crackers.
Yeah.
The platforming was tight. I like that each level was bite-sized. So in other words, I'm not spending 10 minutes going through a level. These levels were very, very short and very, very rewarding when you collected the things within them. The dialogue in the game was dope, and even post-credits, They took that Marvel approach of allowing you to continue to do more things in the post game, which you don't often see in a platformer indie game in this genre. I loved this game, and I thought it was fantastic.
So I do feel like, Nice Guy, I have to justify Fallen Leaf. I am such a huge fan of Mega Man that in a lot of ways I felt like as much as I loved Fallen Leaf, I couldn't separate, do I love this because I'm such a Mega Manner, or is it legitimately that amazing? And so even though I think it's great, and I left it off specifically because I could not divorce myself from my bias toward this style of game.
That's fair.
So
That's
I am
totally fair.
Beyond thrilled that it's your number one pick, because I feel like that's vindication. And yeah, no, lovely. Fallen Leaf, a bargain at twice the price. It's normally $17, and it's $12 now on the Steam sale. But and way fewer reviews than it deserves.
Yeah. It was cool, like going back and trying to find some of the, I won't even call them Easter eggs, but like in The Legend of Zelda, how you'll meet someone and they'll be like, "Hey, my frisbee's missing. If you bring it to me, I'd really appreciate it." And then you bring them the frisbee and they give you like a pencil, and then later you meet someone and they're like, "Oh, I need to write a letter," and it's like, "Hey, I have a pencil." Right, and then they give you something, and that goes on and on and on. Fallen Leaf had a similar type of thing, and it required that you would backtrack and go to different, quote unquote worlds in the map to solve it. But getting rewards for doing these quests, in addition to just having fun platforming, was such a great thing. So I really enjoyed that game. Mac, I'm curious if you were to pick, 1-2 games that we played this year that didn't make your list as an honorable mention, and I think you might have said one earlier. Would you have had any of those? I know I have one that I want to give a shout out to.
Yeah, so Iron Meat and Mobius Machine, both solid games, and of course Fallen Leaf was on my honorable mentions list for the reason that I couldn't, be objective. Yep. I didn't feel like. But I felt like Iron Meat, Mobius Machine, one of the themes, Mr. Nice Guy, of the indies that we got this year, the ones that made our list, the ones that were close to being on our list, I feel like they did something new. They brought something new, either updated sensibility or updated style to a classic genre, a classic theme, variations on a theme as they were, and yeah, I felt like so many of them were amazing. Mobius Machine, a fun take on on a Metroid style, down to the aliens and the strange world you're stranded on. Iron Meat, the fun updates to Castlevania, and of course Fallen Leaf, to what I felt was a perfect encapsulation of Mega Man stylings.
The only one that I was going to mention, you just mentioned, which is Mobius Machine. I thought that was a really, really good Metroidvania. I like really tight controls when I'm playing games. I don't feel like its controls were as tight as they could have been. But graphically, one of the most beautiful games that we played this year. And I really like when developers add a ton of depth, not a distracting amount. Ultros was almost a little bit distracting, but Mobius Machine, you felt immersed in that world. And, just for those who may want to check it out, if you like Metroidvanias that are non-traditional, it's currently on sale for $11.99, which is 40% off on the Steam sale. So want to give a shout out to Madruga Works for those codes and for making an awesome game. But Mac, that has been our indie game of the year for year 2 episode. Do we want to talk about what we've been watching and what we've been playing before we get going out of here? What do you think?
I think, yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, what you been into the past week or two?
I've been up to mostly relaxing, but I have been playing a lot of Skyrim.
Nice.
I've mentioned a couple times ago that I have since dipped my toe into Skyrim, and it definitely scratches an itch. I'm enjoying it, and I will continue to enjoy it. And there's a lot of content there in Skyrim, so it's taking me a while to get there for sure. But I'm loving most every minute of it. A little bit of challenge, a little bit of easy breezy, because I feel like I've dialed in the... I feel like I understand the language of an open world RPG.
Sure.
And so I very much, feel as though I'm like... I feel like I understand when I'm like, oh, there's a blood splatter. Betting there's a trap nearby. Stuff like that.
Yep.
But it's been a good time. As for watching, just watching some YouTube videos, comfort stuff, returning to the old stuff. I feel like way back in the day, there was a thing when The Office was available on Netflix. I feel like there was some sort of a stat that like 75-80% of all Netflix watching was the episodes of The Office. It was something ridiculous like that. Yeah, and maybe I'm 100% wrong, but I feel like that was presented, and I also think that's why Peacock or whoever it is who has the streaming rights to The Office, decided that they could spin off and do a streaming service all on their own with nothing but The Office, really, to start out, and that didn't work out so well for them. But the point being is that in much the same way that I feel like so many of us were just watching reruns of The Office because it was comforting, Taskmaster is that show for me. And so I watch an awful lot of it, but I'll be getting some new stuff soon. Promise. How about you, Mr. Nice Guy?
Love it, love it. Well, I had a little bit of time to game over the holidays, and in terms of new stuff that I've been playing, I just picked up Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, which is phenomenal. If anyone has played Vampire Survivors and or has played Deep Rock Galactic, this is that. It's Vampire Survivors, but using the little elves that you see in Deep Rock Galactic that are shouting rock and stone all the time and running around and being funny. So it's a really, really good game. There's so much depth. It's one of those games that's like $7 right now on the Steam sale. So if it interests you in the least, if you're a Vampire Survivor fan, I would truly recommend this game. The other game that I picked up, and I don't think I've talked about this since we last recorded, is Animal Well. And that's a Metroidvania that is no combat, but simply solving puzzles, and some of the puzzles will make you feel like a genius when you solve them. So those are the two games that I'm currently working on. And then in terms of watching stuff, we're still doing our Marvel watch through. We did just watch the first Tom Holland Spider-Man yesterday and really enjoyed that, and then managed to watch some basketball and football on Christmas Day. So yeah, that's it for me, Mac. Well, Mac, would you do the honors of taking us home, my friend?
Absolutely. Before we go, a sincere thank you to everybody in 2024 who helped us to review their indie games. They were all fantastic. We had a lovely time with them, and we hope that in our little way, we've helped you just as much as you've helped us experience whole new vistas in video gaming. Congratulations to our indie games of the year, and thank you to all of you listeners out there who come and listen to Two Nerds in a Pod. We try to come to you on most Tuesdays. We're coming to you on a Monday, of course. New Year's. We've had Christmas and New Year's, both on Tuesdays. Tough to work around our schedules with people and things, but we're thrilled to be here. We hope that you'll join us as we go into 2025. Tuesdays, twitch.tv/Two Nerds in a Pod. That's with the number 2 at usually about 9 p.m. or so Eastern or Central, 7 p.m. Pacific. So come on out, and if you can't, thank you for listening to the episode put on your podcast feeds afterward. Take it easy, everybody. Be excellent to each other and keep it nerdy. We'll see you.
Deuces. Happy New Year.